Okay, so this lesson is on sustainable ecosystems. And this is the introduction to the biology unit, the final unit that we are doing. And it's a fun unit, and it kind of ties in everything that we've done all year. So basically what we're going to be starting with is looking at life on planet Earth and what we are doing to it. We know that we have just one planet, it's single, and we have millions of different species outside of humans. There's beetles and bugs and elephants and blue whales and everything you can think of course, exists on this one spot. And while we think that, the Earth is so big, we know that it is really, really tiny. Remember when we did the space unit, we looked really at how small the planet Earth is and how unique it is, the fact that it can sustain life and have everything that we need in order to survive. The problem is that we are killing it. And if we do not start to take care of it, very soon we may not have a planet to live on. So we're going to be looking at life here, and basically, I guess the first thing that we need to start with is looking at habitats, so where we live. Now, when I say we, I'm not referring just to humans anymore. We meaning everything that lives on this planet. So a habitat, of course, is where the organism lives. And we will be looking at different habitats. We'll look at terrestrial habitats, so ones like trees, desert, forest, grassy meadows, so anything that's on land. And we will be looking at aquatic ecosystems as well. And aquatic takes in freshwater ecosystems, streams, ponds, lakes, things like that. And then, of course, you have your marine ecosystems. And the depths of the ocean are quite different than the ocean along a tidal wave. Sorry about that. So that's what a habitat is. And like I said, we have the polar bears. We know of the Arctic and how we are actually destroying the ice flow. We're destroying the Arctic, and the polar ice caps are melting. We have, of course, things that live in the ocean. We could have a habitat that's just, a little pond along a community park. And that is where a lot of ducks and geese and swans and stuff will live. Of course, you have your meadows where you have deer and everything else. And of course, this is our habitat. And this is also a habitat of humans. So it totally depends on where you are in the world and what's available to you. That kind of determines where you live and the resources you have. So I want to show you this little video clip. It may take me a second here. Oh, never mind. I will show that to you another day. Let's see. Okay, so I'll show this to you another day. It's just a little video clip. Basically, the idea of it is that we do only have one world, and no matter what goes on, we are completely connected in that world. And one change somewhere can have a huge impact everywhere else. So what I want to start with now is breaking down the Earth. We've talked about, the Earth is this big planet. So now we're going to start breaking it down into smaller and smaller pieces. So there's different spheres of the Earth. There's the atmosphere, the lithosphere, the hydrosphere, and the biosphere. And what we're going to do is, and I'll just back up a little bit so you can write those down, but we're going to talk about each of these four, and you may already be very familiar with them. But different things, there's different conditions in each one of these spheres, and that allows for different life, and it allows for different things to go on. So if we look at the atmosphere, this is basically, if you look at the Earth, and let me just try to draw a little quick diagram. You have the Earth here, and North America, South America, and that looks nothing like it, but it doesn't matter, and whatever. Surrounding our Earth, remember, we have this ozone layer, and even that layer itself, there's this layer of gases that surround, and this, of course, is where our oxygen is. This is where carbon dioxide is. It's made up of a lot of nitrogen, actually. And then we have other gases. We have some water vapor in there. And then, of course, that ozone layer that protects us from the sun. So we actually are made up of, or our gases that surround the Earth is 78% nitrogen, and a lot of people aren't aware of that. We automatically assume that it's oxygen and carbon dioxide, but 78% of the gases that surround the Earth are nitrogen. 21% then, of course, is the oxygen that we need to breathe, and what's left is 1%. Now think about this. We have 1%. That 1% is made up of argon, water, carbon dioxide, and other. A lot of people think that there's a lot more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere than what there actually is. And this is why when that carbon dioxide is imbalanced, and because of pollution and global warming and stuff like that, you may not think that it will have a huge impact, but it really, really does, because that makes up less than 1% of our atmosphere. And we are increasing the amount of carbon dioxide tremendously. So if you look, and let me just get rid of this for you. If you look here, we actually have different layers even within the atmosphere. You have the ionosphere, where you have ions, right? And we talked about ions in chemistry, and that's what actually gives us the northern lights. And I don't know if you're aware of what they are, but it's a beautiful light show. If you go northern Canada, basically it's beautiful colors, and it's the ions that's in the atmosphere that absorb the energy, and they light up, and it's just gorgeous. Then you have the mesosphere, and then you actually have the ozone layer right here, right along, just at the top of the stratosphere, and then you have the troposphere. So within the atmosphere, we have these different layers of gases that are different sizes. If you look at the troposphere, which is pretty much what we're involved with, it's about 14 kilometers thick. And then you get about 50 kilometers up into the stratosphere, and then 90 kilometers up to the mesosphere, and then 350 kilometers up to the ionosphere. So the next part then is the lithosphere, and that's basically that rocky outer part of our Earth. So what we live on, you have the rocks and minerals. This is about 50 to 150 kilometers thick, which is actually fairly thick for the surface of the Earth. The lithosphere goes continuously around the Earth, so you can see here, you have your continent. This is our landmass. This is where we build our cities and stuff, and you have the ocean then connected to that, and then underneath that is this layer, this lithosphere layer. I'll just back up so you can make sure you get that down. So again, the rocks, the minerals, and that thick part. Then if we move on to the hydrosphere, well, hydro means water. Water, this is the water on and above and around the whole of the Earth's surface. So this includes everything from oceans to lakes, ponds, ice, water that's in the ground, water that's in the atmosphere, in the clouds, all those types of things. This is a really cool diagram. You can see right here, like this is just water being evaporated up into the clouds, which is pretty awesome off of the ocean. And then, of course, our amazing icebergs. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures on the internet. They have a picture and they show like the ocean and they show the tip of an iceberg and then they show the rest of the iceberg below it. 90% of an iceberg is underneath the water and you can't see it. We only see 10% of the iceberg at the top. So you can imagine then how big this iceberg is, how big it is then underneath, which is pretty amazing. There's some really big icebergs right now off the coast of Newfoundland. And when I say big, like this is, you would have like a little a boat down here. It'll be a little tiny thing, and this is just ginormous. The biosphere, then, this is the one. This is basically the part of the Earth where life exists. It's within the lithosphere, atmosphere, and hydrosphere. So this is basically where living things live. Um, they have their space for survival. They have their water, their nutrients, and all those things. And basically, it is these things, space, water, and nutrients, that actually limit um, how many organisms can live in a particular area that can survive there. If there's not enough food, then you're going to limit your population. If there's not enough water, if there's not enough space. So all of these things kind of determine the living things that can live in an ecosystem. And I'm not just talking about one population. If you have, a field with deer and mice and fox and birds, they all have to share that stuff and compete for that space and that water and those nutrients to survive. And the earth can only hold so much. There's this hypothesis, this idea that basically, and it came about in the 1960s, so a little while ago, that he proposed that the Earth was actually, this guy Lovelock, that the Earth was actually behaving like a living organism itself. So the Earth itself is like a living organism. And the reason he said that is because basically it is responding to changes in the environment. So by us polluting, putting extra chemicals into the atmosphere, depleting forests, destroying rainforests and regular forests, by pulling minerals out of the soil, we are changing the earth, and the earth has to respond to that. So the earth will try to maintain these consistent conditions for us over millions of years, but the problem is right now we are making changes that it cannot keep up with, and that's a big fear of what the world, what's going to happen, and what happens when we run out of food, when we run out of the air that we need to breathe, and those things. And this is the guy who came up with that. And a lot of people, think about that. Yeah, the Earth is a living organism. I mean, it isn't. It's not living, but it acts like a living organism, and it does respond to changes, and we have to really take care of it. So that's it for this one, and we'll talk more about ecology in a little bit.